Well, hello, JP here at Brizy, and in this quick build, we're going to build out this hero section, and yes, you can do it. Even with this sophisticated graphics, I'm going to show you how you can use free stuff to make it happen for you. Joining me today is a full room of ladies, no boys. No, there's one boy there in the corner. There's Luca, I see Didi, I see Toki, I see Fila, I see Karen, and who's under the table? Nisha, and then behind me is the boy, Obi, and they will be overseeing the quality of this video. Great, now that we got that out of the way, let's dive in. This is actually a very, very simple one, and I've taken something a little bit more complicated design, simplified it, but what I want to elaborate on is that there is a lot of great graphic stuff out there for free, and then you can go premium, and there are some sites with really good packages that can really help you spice up your website and just step out of the bland zone with some spices on top. You don't need to learn great skills, but you do need to spend some time. And it's very easy for people like me who've invested years in Photoshop and Illustrator, Premiere Pro, etc., to tell you, just do this and do that, because often just finding where it is within the user interface can be very complicated. Now, let's start off with what we're going to need. You're going to need your builder. That can be WordPress and that can be Brizy Cloud. Either of them is going to work perfectly for this one. Then we're going to use an online editor that is for free because we're going to work with a PSD file, which is Photoshop document, and we're going to use Photopea. Follow them at photopea.com, and then for this graphic, we're going to go to FreePick. I'm going to show you free, you download it, and what you can do and bring it to this kind of hero section that we have at the top of this page. Let's start by going and getting it. And we go to FreePick, and I will search for Design Agency Landing Page Hero. Yes, I went and checked all the keywords so that I can find it again. And you can see off the bat it pops here, but what I will recommend is that you just go to the sidebar and select free so that you don't get into the premium stuff. FreePick has a lot of great stuff. There are many other websites out there with awesome free stuff as well. You can go check them out. I like the pricing of this one. Premium is great, and that's why I just stick with them. So I'm going to select free to make sure it is free. And then you see this one over here. That's the one that I've started with, but there are other great ones too. Why did I choose this? I'll select it, and it opens up for me a little splash screen with it there, and I can download it. The reason I choose this is I often just look at the background. I don't look at the text. I don't look at the other design elements. The background is just something that I think looks really cool and will work on my site. A lot of website builders often think that this kind of design should be included within the website builder. That is great. It is awesome if it can be in the website builder. But many of the designs and creations that you see on websites are still done in editors like Photoshop and Affinity Photo, etc., because you need a little bit more control than any site builder can give you. So with text like this helping you make the right move and the button, all of this, you're heading at the top, you're going to do that in the builder. But with this design elements and the background, you're going to need this template for it. Go to download, and you'll see under it, it's going to give you a PSD and a JPEG or a JPG. And I'll download it. And very quick, 7.2, let's go to show in folder, and then I'll click on the zip file to see what we have in here. We have the JPEG file, which is an image. This is pretty useless because there's absolutely nothing you can do with it unless you want to show someone what you're working on. You cannot remove the images, you cannot make changes to the text, pretty useless. Let's close that one out, and what we want to work with is this Adobe Photoshop image file. Click, hold, and I'll drag it because it's still in the zip. I'll drag it to my downloads folder, and there we have it. I'll just leave that naming there. Now we go over to Photopea because we have to open it. My editor of choice will be Photoshop, and I can do a little bit more in Photoshop. I found that when I export the images in Photoshop, they are smaller and a little bit more refined, but Photopea does a splendid job. Let's click here on Open from Computer, and I'm rolling those R's today. Let's click on Photoshop and open. And in no time, it opens it. I really have to say, for an online editor, this is extremely quick. What we have with a PSD file is basically layer editing. So if you go to the sidebar here on the right, you will see we have a layers area. This is going to work the same in Photoshop and Affinity Photo. And you have these different elements stacked on top of each other, and then they are grouped into these folders. If you want to unfold that group, you just click here on this arrow and you will see there's just one thing in there. If I go to text, you will see that we have a number of elements within the text, nicely grouped here. I like things that are clean. Notice though this little eye that shows you that you are displaying it. Now, what I want to achieve here is only keep the background, that sunny background with those two elements and the halftone dots. I need to keep them. Now, they won't be on the logo. So what I'll do is I will disable logo, and you'll see that the logo in the top left-hand corner disappears. The link is probably, what is the link? The link is our menu elements at the top. Then the social media is gone. Then the text. Yeah, we want to use the text in the builder. So we're going to remove the text. And now we have a problem because we want to remove this design elements, you know, this little shadow, these dots, and these three dots here on the side, and this box for the button. If I click on design, it removes everything and there's just a yellow background left. So we have to make sure that this is on. Then we unfold it. Check here the names. So for example, the dots will be these three dots. I'll deactivate that. Rounded rectangle will, that's the rounded rectangle is the button. And then there's another rounded rectangle. That's the one at the top. And then these three we want to remove. Shape. There's the shape. I'm looking at shape. I don't know where it is, so I'm just going to deactivate it. Then ellipse is the small little dot and the other small little dot. Then here's another ellipse. Let's keep that ellipse because that's going to be our little shadow for our superhero. Now, this Vector Smart image I want to leave in. This one I want to leave in, and this Vector Smart in the back I want to leave. But I want to also remove Super Joe at this moment because we're going to bring him in independently. So I'll remove him and then the ellipse. So we only have the background. That's it. We've taken that file from FreePic. We've removed everything. We have a very nice background. Export this. Go to the file at the top and select here Export As. Your question is going to be PNG or JPG. Now for the PNG, it could get a little bit big. And then for the JPEG, you're going to maybe have to reduce it for quality purposes. Let's do both to see what we end up with. So PNG, I'm going to select that. And then we have a dialog box. Let's call this BG for background _ PNG. And then for the width, I'll just type in 190/20 because we work with a width that we are familiar with, which is 1920. And you see it already set to 1080. Not going to play around with the quality, but note here in the bottom, it does say to us it's going to be around 222 kilobytes, which is fair for a background this size. Let's click on Save. Close this. Let's now export it as a JPEG. So we go again to Export as JPEG, JPG. And we're going to call this BG _ JPG, already at 1920. And I like to put it on a quality of 40%. Save. And let's have a quick look then in our folder at these two. So we have this PNG at 222 kilobyte, and we have this one at 43 kilobyte. Let's click it and open it in the viewer just to see if it looks okay. I think those images are sharp enough. I see a little bit of artifacts in there, but if you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it. What's important is how it's going to look in the builder. Let's close this and let's go back into Brizy. Now, remember, I told you you're going to do this either in Brizy WordPress or Brizy Cloud. Let's bring in a new block. Go to the settings image, and because this is in cloud, you have to upload it. I'll go for the JPEG because it's the smaller file. And I will put it on original. I'll go to the little settings for height and I'll put it on full height. And there we go. Look at that. I look at the quality. Let me just click outside. I think that's fine. We probably can go for something like 60% on export just to make sure it's a little bit sharper. But if you want to go for the PNG, and let's do that so you can just see the difference. We bring in that PNG file, and I still think the PNG size is good enough, but because we're going to layer it with Super Joe, it's going to add additional data to this Euro section, which I don't really want. But if we can't get away from it, c'est la vie. The quality is much better if you're looking for it. I'll say that again. Let's finish up all the design parts, bring in the image of Super Joe before we look at the text. If we reference this image again of them, these are two columns. This one looks around, I would say around 60%, this side around 40%. You have a little bit more on this side, and the image has a little bit more weight on this side. Let's bring in those columns, go to our elements, grab the columns, drop it in the middle, and I'll just put it at 40, 60 already. If I cannot get it exactly at 40, which is I almost had it. Let's just go and do it manually and type in 40%. Ta-da! Now let's go and get our friend Super Joe alone. Now what we need to do is bring Joe back. So this one that says Vector Smart Object, select that, and then the ellipse under him, that is his little base. Okay, so here Photopea is a little bit behind something like Photoshop. I'm not sure if it's included yet, but what I can do in Photoshop is to right click here on my selection and then copy it. And from there, I can create a new image based on the size of this image that I've just copied. And I create a new one because I want to create a new file so I can just export this one. I'm going to go for a very rudimentary way, and some people will probably have a little bit of a stroke when they see what I'm about to do, but this is really an easy way of doing it. What we want to do is make sure nothing is selected except Super Joe. So I'll also deselect these Vector Smart images, and I'll also deselect this background so we can see that checkered background, which shows us it's transparent. I need to, though, crop this so it's only Super Joe and not all this extra space. Otherwise, when I export this as a PNG, it's going to bring this in. It's not going to work well. Two ways. You can either go for cropping this image. And to do that, you go here to the sidebar on the left. You can just hit C on your keyboard, which is what I usually do, or you just select the crop tool. Now I grab these handles and I'll just bring it in like so. And I'm going to show you the other way too, which is actually more accurate. And then you go for the check here at the top. Now you only have him. You can only export him. I've not changed the document. I've not deleted any of these other things. And remember, I can just go and download it again if I mess it up. But the easier way is to go to the image here in the top, and you'll see this option, Trim. Select Trim, and Trim is going to remove all the pixels with no data around these sides, basically a square. And you can leave the default settings, select OK. It just gets rid of all of that empty space. Now I can export this. We're going to go for a PNG, or you can go for an SVG because you need the transparent background. Export as. I found previously when I tested this, these two were very similar because actually this image contains pixels. So the SVG actually loads pretty big. If it was a true vector image, we wouldn't have that problem. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, but you can go read a little bit about vector image and pixel-based images. Let's select PNG. And now I'll call him, what did we call him? Super Joe, PNG. With 700, I think we can just bring him down to 600, save a little bit of that space, and I'll tab so we can get to the height. It will automatically adjust. And you can see here, set at 100%. This may be a little too big. So if I want to, I can go smaller. I could go smaller, but let's rather save it at that 600. Great bananas. Let's go back into the builder. We bring in an image, drag and drop, select it, and we upload our newly created superhero. And then here again from custom, I will go to original. And you can see he's filling the whole page with his ego. We need to cut him down a little bit. So I'll grab the dots here on the side and I'll just drag him to something a little bit more sizable. This is the other thing you have to learn about a lot of this design. It's not pixel perfect. You just drag it. If it looks good, you let it go. Let's just have a look. If you want to know, I go to settings and the size is at percentage at 64. Now, sometimes you will say, but I remember the size can be also in pixels. And that is when you go to the image and you put it on custom. Then you also have the pixels control over that. But here we go. Look at what we've created here. Very similar to the original. And we've done a big job. I'll just close this download folder and talk quickly about all the other elements involved here. Let's rather go back to photo P and I'll close this. There is unsaved. Do you really want to close? Yes. And I will open it again so we can have a better look at it. Right, so there's actually a lot going on here. You have the logo at the top. You have the heading. You have the social media. These you're all going to do within the builder. That's why you can see in mine, there's nothing at the top. At the bottom, you have then extra that you can bring in. I'm not entirely sure if this is what I want for my hero. I'll probably want to bring this a little bit down, maybe into a footer. You see there's a copyright section. You don't want the copyright section in your hero section. At the top, a telephone number, why not? And then you have the 3 dots on the side, and that could be page navigation, which we don't have and we're not going to use. That's why I'm going to stick only to this image and then bring in my own text here on the right. If you want to use the same text as this designer, go to the layers pane and let's look for text. And then you can activate the selector, click up here on the move tool or hit V on your keyboard and simply click on the text that you're interested in. I'll click here on helping and you will see under text, this one is highlighted. Now go over this little icon and double click. And then here in the context toolbar at the top, it opens up all the settings for this text. And you will see our good friend Montserrat appears. And it says it's at extra bold at a size of 20 pixels. Now this size is meaningless for you in terms of design. You're going to have to adjust it by yourself. But we know it's Montserrat and we know it's extra bold. Let's hop back and bring in our first text. Text element. May I be, and I'm going to hit enter. Your ultimate superhero Joe. And then I'll hit Control A, Command A to select everything. And I'll go over here to uppercase and put them all on uppercase. Then let's go to Montserrat. And we put them on, what was it? Extra bold. Align them to the right because this is how they were designed. And let's increase the height. No specific height. I'm just increasing them so we have something to work with. Here, line height plays a big role. You don't want the space between these lines. So you have to reduce the line height. And in many cases, you're going to find that this kind of impactful text, 1 for a line height is good enough. Letter spacing is also good to reduce, often a little, like minus 0.5. You can go as low as minus 1.5. Let's see. I think I tried that. Yeah, even that is good. It just has a little bit more impact and draws again the attention. Now we play around with the different sizes of the different text. Remember, I've added breaks here at the end of these sentences, and that allows me to edit each of them individually. I can just click in the top one and then go to typography, and I'll hold the up arrow key to increase the size. And then I will click in this one and do the same. Looks like there's a space at the bottom. Let's see if I can, yes, I can delete it. Let's change the color, and with the new color picker in Brizy, this is very easily done. Select all the text, go over here to color and select the color picker here in the bottom left corner. Now we can hover and choose this nice dark one on his arms. Click outside, and yes, that's what we want. Note though that if you look at the original, it has this nice outline effect. We're not going to be able to achieve that at this moment, but with this text, I'm already very happy at what we have achieved. May I be your ultimate superhero, Joe? I can go to superhero, select that, and go to the weight and put that on black. You see that? Give it a little bit extra oomph. And then on your ultimate, we can move that one weight down. Now we are experimenting with our own design. May I be your ultimate superhero? Bring in a spacer for a little bit of space, drag it down. And then we bring in another text element. We're going to do more or less the same here that we did with the previous one selected. We make super brands. Select all of them, Control A, Command A, and then I'll put this on black. This is not black, so I'll just drag it all the way to the left. Let's go to Montserrat, increase it a little bit. Not too concerned. Reduce the line height again to 1. Let's go to uppercase. I think this is a little too close to each other, and we have to put it also on extra black. Let's add a little bit of line height, 1.1, and we align it to the right. There again is a space. Let's delete that space. Click on We Make Super Brands, and we're going to reduce this to around 28, and we're going to increase the letter spacing, something a little bit different, and put it on medium. Yep, let's make it a little bit smaller still, 26, and let's make super brands bigger. The bigger, the better. Marvelous. And the final thing we need for this design is our call to action, which is a button. I'll bring in another spacer. Instead of bringing in another one, I'll just go ahead and duplicate this one. Click, hold, and drag it until below We Make Super Brands, and then bring in a button over here. Click, hold, and drag, and select the button. I'll align it first to the right. Type in Inquire Now, and you have to type this in all caps. There is no capitalize and uppercase feature within the button. Go to the button settings, and I'll remove the icon first. And the position, size, let's go back to button. And here for the size, I'll use custom. So the width I'm going to reduce, and then the height I'm also going to reduce. And then we hop on over to typography. It's on Montserrat, and we increase that and put it on our extra bold. Note the letter spacing is at 3. I think that can work for us, but let's go ahead and change the color. Now I've already used this red. I want to use the same red. This is a good idea that if you're going to be using the same color, to rather go for global styling. And to show you how we can do that is you go here to the styling option and you select any of these colors, these two preferably. And the reason I say preferably is because they are not connected to anything else. I like to use these 3 for my light dark theme. These guys over here, and they are better for buttons and icons as well as the hover effect. So I'll choose this one. I'll go and sample this red that we've had over here. Now we've locked that in, and I'll just come back here, select all of them, and I'll put them on that swatch because currently they're not a global style. And then I'll come to the button, and the background of the button, I'll put on that as well. Go to hover because currently the hover is also on this blue. I'll select it again, and I'll just reduce the opacity a little bit more. Let's go have a look, and it works perfectly. To balance this, I'll go to the column and then settings. And here where we see content, I'll put it in the middle so it's nicely balanced. And look at that. Update. Let's go and preview this little work of art that we've spent hours on the front end. And it looks real groovy. It's not the end though, and I wish it was the end. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because it's something that I really fear sometimes, is you have to go and look at how this is going to work on tablets and mobile devices. Yes, responsive design. From the sidebar on the left, select our little screen, and currently we're on desktop, and select tablet. All right, so what we want to do here is start reducing the size here. Let's just check. I think this is still at 40%, and I think 40 is good for us. Let's click on the first one, and we reduce the size until it fits in nicely. And I'm just holding down on the bottom arrow key. Good. Then we do the same for this one, and I hold down. And everything I do here, or anything I'm allowed to do here, will not affect the other designs and that will be the desktop and mobile. Click on Superhero Joe. We do the same and scroll down until it fits in. Okay, there we go. And to make everything balanced, we do the same. We're just going to reduce this also a little bit and put this, let's say 36 for this one. And the button is already styled. So you need to look carefully at the button. Is this what you want? For example, it's now on semi, it looks like it's on semi bold. I want it on extra bold. And if we go to the settings and the size, I want to change this. Again, I want to reduce this and have my own control over the height. And then we go to typography, it's at 12. That's really tiny actually. And I'll put it on 18 because we were working with this big area. Then let's do this. But what do we see here that's not looking good? And that's this full auto height. Auto height is not working for me here. So we'll go to the settings and then height. At full height, I'll put it on auto. I mean, it was on full height. I want it on auto, and I'll just bring in a little bit more here. Disregard that at the top. That's other stuff I've been working on. And you will see that I don't have the same space here on the right like I have with my desktop. On tablets, that is fine. But what I'll do is probably just select Super Joe and put him on the left so it's a little bit more balanced. And I can even consider dragging this, make him bigger again, and then increasing the size of these guys. Good. Then, after we are very, very satisfied with our tablet design, we'll scroll down and have a look and what are we going to do here? This is not going to work on a 50-50 or a 40-60 column basis. Not going to work at all. But what I'll do is focus on these guys first. Let's do the same as we did previously. Let's reduce the size until they fit in. And I'm just holding down until they start fitting in. And I'm going to give them some extra space because actually the breakpoint for this one is pretty big. And when you see it on an Apple or Samsung device, it's going to break the line. May I be, and then click on your ultimate, which is the next line break. We have to make this one smaller. Great. And then superhero and reduce that one as well. Oops. Oops. Okay. But I think that's good. And then this one I'm also going to reduce. Let's bring it down to 20. And that previous one is 36. So let's make this around 32. And again with the button, I'll put it on extra bold. And let's also increase this to 16, even 18. Sometimes the button on your phone needs to be bigger because people are pushing it with their thumb. So they need a little bit more of real estate, which is kind of counterintuitive. You would say it's a smaller screen than a desktop, why the button should be bigger, but it's just good for people that they can easily touch it. Just go to the settings of the button, again, custom, and I'll reduce this so that I can have the same effect as the graphic designer intended. Go to the block settings, and where is that now? Here, okay. And we also take away full height and we put it on auto. Let's reverse the columns. I'll click on this column and reverse it so we have this at the top to start with, and I'll drag that in. And now I will click on our friend, what's his name, Super Joe. And in the sidebar on the right where you see position, I'm going to click on absolute, or rather select absolute from the drop down. And now I have the power to put him anywhere I want. And you can see he's become very, very tiny. It reminds me a little bit of the devils in Emperor's Groove and the angel, this small little dude. But here in the sidebar, now I have the option with width to increase him and decrease him to my pleasure. And I'm going to bring him up to around 40%. And this is a great feature, the positioning that you have. Don't forget about it. Easy to forget about it. Oops, I made that larger. Let's put it on 40% again. And now I'll go to the bottom here and just add padding. Let's add the padding, right? Scroll down. I'll click again on him. And you see, I can just click, hold and drag. I can move him around. Like I said, to your heart's content, make him dance. And I'll increase it by dragging those handles and maybe add space here. And then we need to just take him up again. A very interesting design. This will all depend on the device it's being viewed at, and when you do put stuff like design elements on absolute or fixed positioning, they may be a little bit wonky when it goes to mobile devices. So you need to go and check that and make sure that it looks good. But we went from that, and I'm going to hit Control plus, Command plus on my keyboard to move through the various displays. And let's go and have a look. And that all done with free graphics, a free PSD editor that you can use online. And if you cut out all my talk, you could have probably done this in 5 to 10 minutes if you already have your wireframe drafted and your text ready, and it goes in as simple as that. That's it for this quick build. I hope it was useful and that it can bring something to your next design. And make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel for tips and tricks on Brizy, updates, yippee, and then tutorials like this. I'll see you next time, and take care.